Well, Friday finally happened. Zelda passed the next game that had the most perfect scores on Metacritic. That was Grand Theft Auto 4 on the Xbox 360. The PS3 has some reviews, the 360 has some differing reviews, but it seems to come out to GTA 4 having 48 perfect scores, and that's from all different places on the internet and publications and everything. Well, Zelda did finally pass it on Friday, getting its 49th perfect score. Now, earlier in the week, somebody on Reddit or NeoGAF, it was a couple places, reported, or at least they thought when they were reporting that it had passed the perfect score record, but it did not. It gained 44. I think whoever did it failed to realize GTA 4 had 48 perfect scores, but it doesn't matter now. Anyone else who reported on it at that time picked that story up. They are technically correct at this time. It was just kind of a timing thing, but at this point, Zelda has 49. I expected to get at least 50, maybe more than that. I think the places that are verified are starting to run out at this point to get it any further, but it has passed GTA 4. It is now the best rated game in terms of number of perfect scores. I figured at this point I would talk about Breath of the Wild. I'm not finished it yet. I'm still playing through it. I'm a little over 20 hours in at this point, and I have to tell you, I am enjoying this game so much. You guys should know by now that I am a big Zelda fan overall. My favorite, I stray a little bit from the majority. My favorite is Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo. I know the big majority, obviously, is Ocarina of Time. I get that. I just think Ocarina of Time pulled a lot from Link to the Past. If you look at both of them together, you will see that Ocarina of Time used a lot of stuff from A Link to the Past, and that kind of refined it, turned it into a 3D world. Just something about Link to the Past, I'm not sure what it was. I just liked Link to the Past a lot. But at this point, I have to say, I'm not finished Breath of the Wild yet, but I think it's going to become my favorite Zelda game ever made. And that's saying something, because like I said, I've been doing Zelda forever, and I love the franchise a lot. And to see a game come out now that is in a world where Zelda is majorly hyped, and I think that's what a lot of people fail to realize. Games come out all the time that are hyped up, and they never live up to the hype. We have games like, you remember No Man's Sky came out. That was hyped till the end of time as being this new big exploration game where you go to planets and explore universes, and it came out and it was nowhere near people's expectations. It was so far below them, and it got ripped apart. And I had this fear when Breath of the Wild was coming out that it was going to be that same thing where expectations would be so high. I mean, they ran an entire E3 with this one game. My fear was that it was going to come out and it just was not going to live up to the hype. And I have to say, like I said, after spending a little over 20 hours with it, it looks like it deserves all of the hype, and honestly, I don't think it's hyped up enough. And it sounds crazy because this game is probably the most hyped game I've ever seen. So I won't spoil anything for you guys. Any of the pictures you see behind me that I've taken, this is all on the Switch. I hit the little capture button to take any pictures. It's all from the Great Plateau, the initial area where you start. So don't worry about that. I'm wearing some different armor and stuff, but it's nothing game-breaking or that's going to ruin any storylines for you guys. I have finished 2 of the major dungeons. There's 4 major dungeons total. You find that out pretty early on, so it shouldn't be a big deal either. And then, of course, there's all of those shrines out there. Over, I think it's like 120 shrines. I know it's over 100. And they're like smaller mini dungeons that you go through, and you get crests, and then you take the crests and you trade them in for more hearts or stamina. And overall, it's a good system. I really like the shrines because they don't always focus on combat. In fact, they almost never focus on combat. Occasionally you do go in there and you have to fight people to get the end of the shrine, but most of the time it's a puzzle, and it's not a long puzzle. You get in there, you spend 5-10 minutes max doing it, and then you're out and you're ready to go on to the next one. I like that. I like they're broken up into smaller puzzles, because then it kind of gives you that sense that you are constantly earning something. You're constantly solving puzzles, getting crests, turning them in, and it's great. And each one is, I think because they're smaller puzzles, each one doesn't have to rely on the same mechanic. It's honestly, when you start playing through it, it's shocking how many ideas this team came up with to make these shrines. So yes, I do like the dungeon aspect. Like I said, there's 4 major dungeons, there's a bunch of small shrines. I actually like this method. I prefer this idea and this structure. I think it's very good, and I think it's easy for a lot of people to just get into if you've never played a Zelda game before, because really the shrines are fun. Like, you want to find any of the shrines because beating them, it's fun. The puzzles are really, really well thought out. There's just some cool ideas. I don't want to ruin it, like I said, for you guys. You have to try it yourself, but man, some of those shrines you go to, and what's great is I can tell you now, every person who's played, none of us have done any of the shrines in the same order. That's the biggest draw for Breath of the Wild, is it takes 5 minutes to start the game, from hitting new game to waking up to getting out in the open, and then you just do what you want. You can just run in one direction and just go do anything you want. And it's the craziest thing I've ever seen. I know some games have done it, Fallout, stuff like that, but for some reason, I don't really know what it is about Breath of the Wild, but the world just pulls you in all directions, and you want to explore. Like, I'll just be walking to a quest indicator that I set down. You can pin so you can find it easier on the map when you're running around, and I'll kind of look over and I'll see a mountain over here, realizing I can climb it, and I'll try to figure out what's on top of it. So off I go. I'm going to spend 20 minutes, exploring this mountain over here, and you always find something. That's the craziest thing. They put so many rewards out there to find that you are always being encouraged to explore. And it's such a cool feeling. It really is. I don't know what it is about this open world compared to others, but for some reason, Zelda's open world is just so fun to explore. And I can't put my finger on it. I actually am a big fan of the art style. A lot of people don't like the visuals or the graphics. I actually think they look great. I like the art style, but then again, I'm also a big fan of Wind Waker's art style, where a lot of people back then were kind of bashing it, didn't like it. I was actually one of the few people in the crowd that were like, oh, that looks really cool. Like, you convey emotion much better than a lot of the realistic graphics, because most graphics now still are not realistic completely. They still look like polygons, not polygons, but you know what I mean. They're not photo quality yet. So why not be more artistic with your stuff? You can convey emotion a lot better. And I just like the way it looks. It's very vibrant, it's colorful, and really just when you start running through a field and you realize just how pretty it looks, I think it really goes undervalued with a lot of people. One thing that doesn't seem to go undervalued with a lot of people is the frame rate issues. People seem to blow this out of proportion. I don't think the frame rate issue is that bad. People seem to think that you're running around at 2 frames per second all the time. That's not the case at all, people. It's not that bad. Yes, there are times where you are running around and it feels like it stops for a second to load or something, but rarely does it pull from the experience. You're not playing it and then it drops frames and you all of a sudden are just, you're just freaked out or something. No, it doesn't happen. It's really not that bad. And if you're even a little put off because you're hearing these frame rate issues, don't be put off. You need to play this game. It is that good of a game. This is a game that comes out once every 15 to 20 years. And I'm not even kidding. I just cannot oversell this game. It's crazy how good of a job they did, because when you're coming out with a game and you're putting Zelda on the front of it, there is a major expectation for that. I mean, just a massive expectation. If I was making this game, I would be terrified every night that I go to sleep that it is not good enough. And I feel like that's how they were. They wanted to make sure it was that good of a game. I will say one of the big things I don't like about the game, and this is just me personally, and I started to understand why they were doing this, is that your weapons break. That put me off a little bit, because there are some weapons that I really liked and I would be afraid to use them because I didn't want them to break. But then what's the point of having the weapon if you can't use it? That was my issue. But I did realize as I get further into the game that they want your weapons to break because they want you to explore to find more weapons. So I understand now why they were doing that. But in the beginning, if I got a really cool sword or a really cool bow, I would get frustrated that after like 5-10 uses or whatever, it would just break in my hands. Then I have to go find a new weapon, and if I like the way it looked, I would have to hope that a chest has it, or I find an enemy that also has that same weapon, and it was frustrating at first. But overall, guys, those are my initial impressions. I like the game a lot. If you do not have it, but you have a Wii U, or you're thinking about getting a Switch for this one game, you know what, I gotta say it, I think this game, Zelda, is worth buying a Switch for. I wouldn't buy a Wii U if you're gonna spend the $250, because Wii U's are still going for a lot of money, surprisingly. Just buy the Switch and at least be up to date on Nintendo stuff at that point. I wouldn't go out and buy a Wii U for this game. I would just go out and buy a Switch and get that extra portability out of it as well, which is still mind-blowing that you could play this Zelda game while you're on the go. But Breath of the Wild will probably be Game of the Year for 2017, and it's March, so that doesn't really bode well for the rest of the year, since we kind of already know what's going to be Game of the Year at the end of the year. It's outperformed all of the big games on Metacritic at this point, although I do think games like Ocarina of Time and Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 even get some passes. I mean, really, if we're complaining about the frame rate on the Switch for Zelda, you kind of got to complain. Ocarina of Time ran at 20 frames, sometimes less than that most times, so really, if you're going to complain about frames in a Zelda game, you probably haven't been playing Zelda very long. Maybe you got into games when the 360 or even the original Xbox were around, and you weren't really around for the N64 days when you were playing Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask at 20 frames per second or below. Yes, it was like that, but we still love those games because the core game is great. The core game is so good, it doesn't matter about the frame rate dipping occasionally, and it's very occasionally. That's just how good the game is. I could go back and play Ocarina of Time right now, or Majora's Mask, and the frame rate would not bother me on the 64 because I know that game is that good. Specifically Ocarina of Time. Majora's Mask I liked a lot, but obviously had some flaws here and there that people didn't like. But overall, get this game. It's that good. I'm actually going to go play it right now because I need to finish it. So I will see you guys next time.